Hello everyone, Francis Walsh here again with thedigitalmerchant.com, and today we're revisiting a topic that we've covered a few times on this channel. It's the ERC, or the Employee Retention Credit, but this time we're looking specifically at service providers who will help you get an ERC filing over the line quickly. So we're looking at Expedited Filings. The deadline for the ERC is coming up soon. It's on April 15th of this year. So if you're going to do it, you'd want to be doing it pretty quickly, and you want a company that's going to be able to help you do that. So just to quickly recap on what the ERC is, the Employee Retention Credit, it's a refundable tax credit for any business that had employees in place during government shutdowns related to the pandemic in 2020 and 2021. The filing deadline for 2020 claims has expired. That was last year. But as I said, the 2021 deadline is still to pass, so you can still access funding in relation to employment during the first 3 quarters of 2021. Essentially, if you're a business that was partially shut down or saw a significant revenue drop during those 3 quarters related to the pandemic and the shutdowns, you may be able to access funding on this basis. And the companies that I'm going to discuss here will be able to instruct you in relation to your potential eligibility. That's part of the service they provide. So if you're not sure whether you qualify, but you think you might, it might be worth going for an initial consultation at least. So let's dive in. The first company I'm looking at here is a company that I have discussed previously on this channel. I'm a big fan of most of what they do, particularly their tax credit offerings and their ERC consulting service. It's IRS Plus. So IRS Plus is a company with a great reputation. It's got a huge amount of positive customer reviews. It's also a company, it's been around since 2017 and it has expanded in that time, but I feel like it's retained the kind of feel of a small company. If you sign up with them, you'll have access to your agent throughout the process, which is a huge plus when you're dealing with a large amount of money. You obviously want that peace of mind. And they do have a reputation for getting things done quickly, which obviously, as we've mentioned, the filing deadline is soon, so that is a big factor. The only kind of drawback maybe I would say is that they do kind of require a lot of documentation up front, so you might want to have your ducks in a row before you approach them. With the deadline coming up, that's something to be aware of. So yeah, just have your employment reports and payments, details of payments made and all that kind of thing ready to go before you reach out for your initial consultation. So the next company I'm going to look at here is Omega Accounting Solutions. Their big selling point is their bridge loan offering. So if you go to Omega for your ERC filing, the ERC, there has been a huge amount of backlogs with it. The IRS came out last year and said that there were over 1 million claims outstanding, and that some businesses had been waiting over a year to see their money. With the deadline coming up, that could be even worse now at this point. There could be a huge amount of claims outstanding, and it could take you a long time to get paid. So if you are having cash flow issues, or if you just like to see your money sooner rather than later, the bridge loan offering from Omega is something that you could consider. If you're an existing client of the company, you could have your money in as little as 10 days. So that's a huge selling point. The only thing I would say in terms of a drawback here is their pricing is a little bit higher than average in this space. So obviously bridge loans come with interest. So if you do avail of that service, you have to pay interest on it. And even aside from that, their pricing is kind of a little bit higher than average, I would say. So obviously you're probably on a budget. That is something to take into account. The next company we're going to look at here is ERC Specialists. The name says a lot here, and as I've said before on this channel, I'm a big fan of companies that do one thing or a few things and do them well. Rather than doing a million different things and doing them to a passable standard, you want a company that knows exactly what it's doing when it's working on your case. That's what you'll get with ERC Specialists. They've got a really simple layout. They're all about the ERC, and they do have a good reputation for getting things done as well. Again, though, a concern I would have here is that their pricing is probably a little bit higher than average. If you're budget conscious, IRS Plus is probably the best option we've looked at here so far. Now, Accelerate Tax. This is another company where the clue is kind of in the name. They do have a reputation for getting things done quickly, and this video is all about Expedited Filings. So if you're really anxious to work with a company that has a reputation for getting things over the line quickly, Accelerate Tax is certainly one to look at. Now, the only thing I would say on that, however, is that they have a small team. And as I said, there is going to be a bit of a bottleneck with claims over the next couple of weeks. There will more than likely be a huge volume of claims coming into all of these providers in the coming days and weeks. And so that may cause issues in terms of processing for a company with a small team like Accelerate. I would question whether they will be able to keep up their usual volume of production, considering the number of claims that are going to be coming in over the coming weeks. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. ERC Today is the next company we're going to be looking at here. The big selling point for me for ERC Today is their user-friendly platform. They really make things simple online on their website. And that's obviously, when it comes to something as complex as the ERC, that is it's an important thing. It's worth looking at. On the flip side, however, they don't offer the level of tailored support that other companies in this space do. You might not have access to a single agent in the way you would with some other service providers in this space. And with the deadline in a couple of weeks' time, I do think that's something that is important. You want to make sure that everything is moving quickly with your claim. You want to be able to pick up the phone and say, hey, is this okay? Do I need to give you anything else? Is there anything else you need on my end? And that, for me, at this point in time, would kind of be an important factor. So that's just one thing to keep in mind, but I am a big fan of the platform. I do think it just looks and feels really nicely, and it gets things done well. And then Bottom Line Concepts. This is kind of the premium, or not necessarily the premium, but the enterprise level offering. If you're a bigger company and you want to work with a service provider that has experience at that kind of level, I think Bottom Line Concepts is the option you want to go for. It's been around since 2009, so it has a lot of experience outside ERC in financial consulting and tax relief consulting more generally. It's worked with a huge number of Fortune 500 companies and other large companies like that, and it has high approval and satisfaction ratings in general. So, there's no upper limit on the number of employees you can apply for ERC in relation to. So if you've got hundreds of employees and you want to claim a refund in relation to the wages they got in 2021, that comes with big systemic demand. It comes with a lot of paperwork, a lot of back and forth, maybe just to get everything right. You want a company that is comfortable with this kind of volume, and that is what you will get with Bottom Line. So if you're a bigger company, I think this is the company that's worth looking at. Now, the one thing I would say, of course, is that with prestige comes price. Bottom Line is not going to be as cheap as some of the other companies I've looked at here. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're on a budget. So overall, what can we say in terms of recommendations? IRS Plus is, for me, the company that represents the best value for money for the largest number of companies. It's really, really competitive in the small and medium business space, and it has a reputation for getting things done quickly, which at this stage in the game is really, really important. So for if you're a small and medium business, essentially, I would recommend IRS Plus to you ahead of any of the others. The level of customer service you're going to get with Accelerate Tax, I think, is something to consider if you really want to be walked through the process. It might be worth going for a consultation with Accelerate Tax, but I am concerned about the smaller team they have. At this stage in the day, I'm not sure if their reputation for getting things done quickly is going to hold up at this point. I just think there's going to be a huge volume of claims, and I think that's going to hold them back a little bit. And then, as I was saying, if you're a bigger organization, Bottom Line Concepts is probably the way to go. And then, just in terms of a final wrap-up, I think it's really important to be organized at this stage in the day. Have all your documents ready, start looking at them now. There really is no time to waste. It's really getting into crunch time at this point. Hire the pros, that's what this video has been about. work with a company that knows what it's doing, that has a good reputation for getting things done quickly and getting them done properly. Make sure to stay in touch with your agent. You know the way things are when things get busy. If you haven't received a response on something important in a timely fashion, don't be afraid to follow up. Don't be afraid to send a call or an email and say, hey, what's the status on this? It's too important. There's a lot of money on the line. Just make sure you remind them you're there if that needs to be done. And then my last tip would be realistic in terms of timeline. I think, as I said, there's been a huge bottleneck in terms of the processing of these claims. And I feel like that will probably only get worse at this stage in the day. So you're probably going to be waiting more than a year for your money. And don't be expecting to get it today or tomorrow. Best of luck to anyone who is submitting an ERC filing. I hope it all goes well for all of you. And I will speak to you in the next video.